And we're back, and we are COMP392 Advanced Graphics, and it's week 10, part 4 of our broadcast. We just talked about the final project at length, so please, if you have any other questions, please ask me in class if you can. I can respond very, very quickly that way. Let's talk about what we've got right now. So last we left off, we were working with a project called COMP392 Lesson 10. I'm going to pull up Visual Studio Code here. I'm probably working on some. Notice I'm working on some kind of node app, but let's just use lesson 10 as an example. For those people who are interested in I did this really cool tutorial for another class for people who are interested in doing things like express authentication, right? I used a very cool Passport local Mongoose NPM library that actually makes authentication very easy, and it's pretty cool if you want to see that video. But anyways, I must decline to comment. Let's continue. So we've got this little project. I'm just going to pull up the project itself so we can see where we are with it. I fixed it. So I'll talk about why it didn't work and what I did to fix it. But let's talk about this for a second. So I'm going to do gulp. And let's see what I get with this thing when it launches finally. Now, some people say that their project kind of chugs, and I understand it's really hardware specific, right? How it works, right? So if it's chugging along or it's not working, like mine seems not to work today for whatever reason. I was working last time, but suddenly today it doesn't work. Let's see what the problem is if it's not working. So if I was going to go into inspect, I don't think I changed anything big time, but let's see. Failed to load resource, cache read failure. That's a new one. Gravel cobble and gravel cobble normal, right? That's kind of weird that that's happening on lesson 10. So it says cache read failure. What could that possibly be? If you were going to do this, and if you were going to look at images and these two things that I'm kind of loading in from my plane, what would be what caused this? One thing I would do is immediately refresh and see what happens. And it says uncaught type error, cannot read property, set identity of undefined. Getting a bunch of these errors. PhysiJS worker. Did you guys get these errors too? Right? Works fine for you? That's good. How about if did my stuff crash? Like, did that happen? Like, what happened to make my whole thing crash out? By the way, everything was working when I left the last time. This would be terrible if it doesn't work today. I'm gonna have to spend time fixing it, and that's not what I want to do. But let's see. Let's take a look and see what the problem was. I also have a version that I have online, up on GitHub. That was a working version. So if I go to github.com, I'm working with a version of the file COMP392 lesson 10. That's the one I was working with, and I'm pretty sure that I kind of fixed the loader, the way it works, up online, right? And it says added coin loader. That was the last update that I did. And if I look in the scripts file, it kind of says updated the project, so it randomly places the coin. That was 2 days ago that I fixed this thing. So what if my file's not working here? A couple ways I could check this to make sure that it's me somehow, like it's not my file, because this is crazy that I got all these type errors. Like I haven't had this many type errors ever, right? And if you notice, they're all PhysiJS worker errors. Look at all this stuff that I'm getting, PhysiJS worker errors, right? So to me, this smacks of something else that's going on, right? Yeah, this is something else that's going on here, and not what my problem was before. Okay, so how do I fix this problem? What was that? I could grab the latest version of Git. I could do that, and that might be the cause of my issue, right? I'm just saying, these are the things that can cause my problems. And the other thing is I could try and run this thing again in incognito mode. That's another thing I would probably try and do, right? So those are two things I would try. Let's try a new incognito window, and it's probably going to give me the same thing, my guess, right? But only because I know my game very well. But let's see how it is right now. Everything's good. Incognito mode. All right, so here's the coin that I had last time. This is what it looks like right now. It's a little different than what we saw the last time I was together with you guys, right? And by the way, if I was to refresh the game, so if I press escape, and if I refresh the game again, it's going to appear in a different location. Let's see where it goes, right? So escape, look around, and where's that damn coin? It's over there now, right? And if I run over it, right, I can push the coin around, right? Because it's a fizzy material, right? So it's gonna just push around until it falls off the edge, right? So that works. The coin works. So what did I do to fix this thing, right? I knew it was some kind of caching error here, right? Yay! Thank God. Anyways, let's take a look and see what I've done. So I've got my coin mesh, and last time when I was looking at this with you guys, I had this thing called coin loader, right? And my coin loader, what it did was it generated it, it picked up this JSON file that was generated by Blender, right? And what it does is I've defined a couple of things. I've defined a Phong material, right, just to see the color of my coin. And I've also defined, I made the coin emissive. So the material itself it glows. So it kind of, not only does it accept shadows, but it also does a self-emissive material. So it always glows. It's almost got like a color all the time, regardless of the light, right? Which is kind of makes it easy for me. That's one thing I've done. Notice that I haven't, even though I get material, I can export materials, I don't have a material that I'm getting from my JSON file. And you know, I've tried this a bunch of times, material and textures that come right from Blender. You know, I don't know if it's the Fizzy.js version or the 3JS version or whatever, but no matter what I try, I can't seem to make the JSON file pick up materials, right, from Blender. I'm just letting you know. It just doesn't seem to work. It doesn't seem to function, at least not regularly. Sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. And that's not the kind of game that I like to play. I want to make it consistent, right? So that's a problem. That's one problem that I have. So I'm even though I have a material in Blender, I use it as a guide. I want the actual mesh. That's what I really want from Blender. And then I can use the mesh from Blender, and I can use my own materials here in 3JS to color it over. And if I want to add textures and all that, I add them here in 3JS, not the Blender ones, so that there's no problems. So I have a material, but I don't really use it. And then what I've done is I use a convex mesh. That's what I did here in order for me to surround the coin in some kind of contact material. The convex mesh creates the collider, right? That wraps around the object, the material that's around the object itself, right? So that's what it does. That's why I use convex mesh. I could have used a simpler mesh, and if you have performance problems, even something like a rectangular prism would be fine around my coin, right? Because my coin's never going to flip over. It's not going to act like a wheel to turn. So I really don't have to use a convex mesh here. I could probably use some kind of rectangular prism that takes the size of my coin, and it would be fine too, right? I receive shadows and cast shadows, and I've named my coin coin. Why? Because when I come back to here and I want to do my effects, right? Here's my effects up here, right? So when I do my collision checks, I check to see if I've collided with my coin. I collide with my ground. That's how I get my sound effect, right? When I use CreateJS library to generate a sound, the landing sound. But I also want to generate my coin sound, right? And I'm not so sure that I've added a coin sound in here. Under assets, under audio, I have land, jump, footsteps. I probably have a coin sound somewhere that I can probably throw in there. Let's do it now, and I'll put it up on GitHub, right? So I'm just going to minimize some of this stuff here for now while I keep running. And I have a couple of additional objects here, and I always have a test pattern that I'm using, right? Just FYI, whenever if you ever do any kind of presentation, always have a backup, which I always try and do, just in case, you never know, you never can't tell what's going to happen with it. So I've got this test pattern where I have some audio, and I have a hit audio and a coin audio. I'm just going to include those two things in here, and I'll put it up on GitHub so you have it as well. So here's lesson 10, and I'm going to go to audio, and I'm going to copy and paste the hit audio. I generated this hit audio with BFXR, so it's my own little hit. And the coin, that's another something that I generated. There it is. There's the coin. So I've got the coin audio and everything I need. I need to, in order for me to use those two things, though, right? The audio pieces. And just for now, I'll put it up on GitHub for you. So I'll say I added a coin, and I modified my game.ts. I'll just put in there added coin and hit audio files to the project, and I'll push that up to GitHub so you guys have it. So if you want to download those from GitHub. You have access to them in a second, hopefully when the web decides to respond. Okay. So that's done. Let's use them now. All right. So remember how we did it last time. I need to put them inside my manifest. Up on the top, I have my manifest of sounds right now. That's all I've been using my manifest for. I don't have any other thing for my manifest. I have my land wave, right? And I want to include my coin wave, and I also want to include my my hit wave if I get hit by something, right? So let's kind of copy this a couple times. I'm going to copy it. I add a comma and paste it a couple of times, right? There we go. So instead of land, we'll call this hit. So that's the friendly name that for my object. And the hit audio goes, it's a hit wave. So lowercase a, h for hit. And my coin audio, I'll just call it coin, is going to be a coin MP3. So I'll even take MP3. So lowercase coin MP3. And I want to play them. So I want to play my my coin sound when I collide with my coin, right? Okay, cool. Well, I have the effects. Once I am able to have this collision check, I can collide and make that sound. Let's make the sound first. I'm going to say something like this: create.js.sound.play, and then I'll make the coin sound. So that's the coin sound. Every time I hit the coin, it's going to make the coin sound, right? And also what I want to do is, and this is the trick, so watch how I do this. I have my coin. When I add my coin mesh, I set the position. But when I set the position, what I'm actually doing is I'm not only setting it, but I'm adding it to the scene, right? So what I want to do is I want to hit my coin, remove it from the scene, and put it back in. Okay, that's what I want to do. So hit my coin, take it out of the scene, and put it back in by calling my set coin position. And I'm going to pass in a reference to my coin mesh. Why? You'll see in a second, right? So let's go back up here and do that, right? So here's my event, and I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say that I play my coin sound, I remove my coin, so scene.remove, and then I put in there the coin that I want to remove. But is it a smart thing to take away my coin? I could. What I want you to think about is the event itself. This event object is actually an event object, not the event itself. So if I refresh this thing, let's rename this thing so it makes sense. I'm going to call this thing event object, right? For now, just so it makes more sense. So the event object.name, whatever the collision object, what else could I call this thing instead of my event object, right? The other object, the other collider, whatever, right? Well, this is good. So I want to remove the event object itself, right? I don't want to remove, and that's going to be a coin, right? I collide with it, and if I'm in the coin space, right, then if I remove the event object, I remove the coin. Why? Because I could have multiple coins that way, and I can remove that specific object by ID as opposed to by name. Because remember, each object has its own ID, so if I want to generate multiple coins, I can do it this way, right? And we'll do that in a second. So let's say scene.remove event object. Here's my event object. Okay, so I'm going to remove that event object. And then what I want to do is I want to put it back. I want to put the same event object back into play in a random position. So I'm going to set my coin position. I'm going to put in there event object, right? That's going to go back into that, whatever that coin is. So that coin is going to be repositioned. I'm removing it from the scene first, and I'm putting it back. Guys, this is the tried and true way of repositioning your character in a three-dimensional physics game. If you try and push them around or move them with translations or use dirty position or anything like that, it's not going to work consistently every time. If you want to respawn your character, remove that character from the game and put him back into the scene. That's the way to do it. That's the trick, but it's expensive. All right. Every time we instantiate a character or add another thing to the display list, when I add or remove things from the display list, it's always more expensive than when I have them in play and I hide them and move them around. It's better to hide them, move them around. But in this physics game engine that we're using right now, it seems to be the one that works the best. Okay, that's one. The other thing I want to do is I want to increase my score. And remember, I have a score value up here, right? So here's my score value and my my score label, right? My score label is a create.js.text, and my score value is I want to keep track of my score, right? So what I want to do is two things here when I collide with my coin. right? And again, you can make this into a little method if you want, but let's do it without the method, right? So I want to go down here and stuff and say this. So I've removed my coin, whatever. I played my sound, but I also want to increase my score. So I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say score value, right, is plus equals to, let's say each coin is worth 100 points. I don't know, right? For now, you can make, it's an arbitrary number, right? So I increase my score value, but now I want to update my text, right? So I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say score label, which is a create.js text object. It's going to display in our heads-up display in the canvas, right? I'm going to say score label.text, right, is equal to score. I think I made it. I don't know if I made it capitalized. I have to check. I did. Thank you. Plus my score value. So that means that my score will increment this way. I don't know how many coins I have, but for every coin, every time I hit a coin and it disappears and repositions itself, it'll be back. Let's try this out and see if it works. So I've saved everything. It's transpiled. I hear myself fall again. I'm going to go back up to, that's the wrong one. I'm going to go back up to my object, and let's refresh again just because it flipped. We have to talk about that a little bit too. And here's my coin, right? It's in a random place. I kind of run up to it, and if I hit it, it goes away. I turn around. Where is it? Where's it now? Oh, it's right next to me. Oh, that's pretty easy. And then where's it now? It's right here, right? Don't have to go very far. It's random positions, right? And this one is way over here, right? So I'm going to kind of over here and, you know, hit it. And still, the other stuff still works. I can still jump and land. What about the jumping sounds, right? So I've done the random coin generation thing. That's the random coin generation trick that I've done with you. One thing also is some person asked, well, how can I make it so that my characters don't fall over, that they always have the same position, all this kind of stuff? Well, you can do it easily, but you have to plan it properly. And let me show you where it is. What I've done with my coin, after I added the mesh to the scene, is inside my game loop, I made some restrictions to it. Here's one. I made in the game loop, every frame, what I'm doing is this. I'm saying my coin.set angular factor is 0, 0, 0. Coin set angular factor to 0, 0, 0. Here's another one. Coin.set angular velocity to 0, 1, 0. So that's how the spin. That's what's spinning it across the y-axis, right? So those two things, set angular velocity and set angular factor, those two things together are going to solidify that coin so it doesn't flip. It just keeps on turning. Because remember, that coin is a coin. It has the properties of a coin. I don't just, put the coin in play at the ground level. I let it drop. So that coin is dropping down, hitting the ground, right? And it's still spinning. It's not falling over, right? So that's how I did it with these two little lines, right? You can do this for anything, including your own character. Be careful. Be careful, I said, because once you start putting this stuff in your character, you can restrict your movement terribly, right? So what it does is it doesn't allow you, it updates it so it doesn't allow you to flip every single time. The way you're falling is the way you're going to land, right? That's the way it's going to happen. It's angular velocity is what we're trying to lock in. We don't want to stop angular velocity. We just don't want additional factors, additional forces acting on us every frame, right? That's what we don't want. Be careful of this. It may mess you up. Okay, cool. So that's how I did the coin. But what if I want to make multiple coins here? How do I do that? Anyone have an idea of how do I make multiple coins in my game? I want to make multiple coins. Instead of one coin, I want to have 10 coins. How do I do that? Well, I have this. I've already set up a variable called coins, right? And it's going to be of type fuzzy.js convex mesh array. That's what it is. It's going to be a fuzzy.js convex mesh array. All right, if you don't like arrays, then this is not for you, right? Why? Because now I want to generate my coins, but I want them to be added into the fuzzy.js convex mesh array, right? That's what I want it to be done. So I want to push them onto the array every single time I generate them, right? And I want to generate them a bunch of times, right? Well, here's what I want to do. I want to generate them once, right? So here in my, when I go to my add coin mesh, right, down in my add coin mesh, and I'm just going to go down in here. Here's my add coin mesh right here. I notice that I have a loader, my coin loader. I don't want to load this up more than once. I have my coin shape that I'm getting from Blender. So that's going to happen one time. I have my coin material, and I generate my new convex mesh, but I'm assigning it to something called coin. This is where I can make the coin work for me, right? So what I want to do is inside my add coin mesh, I added another. So here's my actual coin. This is cool, but I want to add in a new object for the coin. So one thing, the coins array. I don't want to do it here. So if you notice, I have to initialize this object somewhere. If I haven't initialized the coins array object, I can't use it. And normally I initialize everything at the top, like inside up here. But I haven't done it this time around. And the reason for that is because I believe it belongs in the add coin mesh method. So let's do it there. So how do I do that? Well, in TypeScript, the great thing is I can do something like this. Let's keep this position right here cool. I mean, I like this idea for my different coins. But I don't need it anymore, and we'll talk about this in a second, okay? So here's what I want to do. I want to say this. I want to say coins, which is a fuzzy.js convex mesh array. That's what it is. It's just a structure. Is equal to a new, right, fuzzy.js, a new array. That's what I have to do. A new array of type fuzzy.js dot convex mesh. So this instantiates, that's what this does, instantiates a convex mesh array. Right, so I have to do this first, right? As soon as it's created, I have a container for all my coins, right? Now what I want to do is I want to add to my convex mesh array every time I generate a coin. So instead of me doing this, coin is equal to fuzzy.js convex mesh, right? After I've got my material, which is right here, what I want to do is create a for loop that loops through my array, count number of times, whatever it is, right? So let's say, for example, I want 10 coins, right? I'm probably going to put the number of coins that I want at the top, right? So I can change it. So I don't have to go into my loop somewhere in here, like coin count, whatever it's going to be. Let's put that in there. So I'll say var coin count is a number, right? And let's, for the sake of what I'm going to do now, let's set it to 10 for now. And I'm going to set it up here instead of in my initializer, just for now, because I can always go back. So I've got 10 coins, right? All right, well, I don't have 10 coins yet. I have to generate that. And I'm going to do that in my add coin mesh method. I'm going to do that right here. So here's my loop. I'm going to start kind of putting this together. I'm going to say for var count is a number. I'm going to start it at 0. And as long as my count is less than my coin count, right? Then what I wanted to do is count plus plus. So I'm going to count a number of coins, right? Okay, now in here, what I want to do is something like this. I want to say coins count, whatever the coin count is equal to this stuff, right? This stuff right here, right? So I'm going to take all of this, including this one, and bring it in there. Just get rid of the coin for a second. Watch. Boop, boop. Right? Boop, boop. And so now this is inside my for loop. And instead of coin.receive shadow, it's coins count. Coins count, whatever the coin is inside the array that's going to receive the shadow. So it's going to be one of these. Ta-da. Blah, blah. And I'm going to pass in coin count to my set position. So that position is going to be set for that particular coin. All right, so that's the new structure. So in my for loop, I'm generating all my coins all at once, and they're all going to be positioned in random locations as I generate them, right? That's what's going to happen because I made set coin position flexible enough to accept a different coin every single time, okay? That's the one thing I wanted to do. Okay, cool. Do I need the Phong material emissive? I do. Do I need this Phong material at all? I need all this stuff in my coin loader. This happens right when my coin gets loaded. As soon as I load up my asset, I create my coin array. I do the actual coins array right here. Do I need this coin, new fuzzy.js convex mesh, blah, blah, blah? I don't, right? Not anymore. And I don't need this. And I don't need the geometry. I don't need any of this stuff, right? That I used to have before. For now, let's leave it in. I'll show you the difference. Now, that's one. Two, when I go to my update, I have to update this stuff in here. This doesn't make any sense anymore, right? What I want to do is do a for each loop. So for each coin, I want it to spin. Each coin is going to spin around, right? So I can't do it. I mean, I could create a coin class and do the coin. The coin will spin around as part of the class. But to make it easy, I'm going to make a for each loop here. And for each is fully supported here. So if I go for each, press our company first and press enter, it'll generate the thing that I need. And what am I using? My coins array. So I'm going to say coins array, coins.for each what? For each coin in my coin array, right? For each coin in my coin array, I want to do this. So copy this and put it in here. So for each coin in my coin array, I want to do that. Cool. Now that I have this, and if I save, if I've done things correctly, big if, then what'll happen is it'll generate everything as I want to. And it sounds like it has. Let's take a look and see if it's true. There's my coins. Take a look. They're all spinning now. Now, this is the funny thing with what I've done. Nice idea, Tom. But here's the reality, right? This can cause me a problem. Why would this be a problem? The way I've set it up. Maybe, remember, I've given it a range of random locations from -10 to 10, right? Across the game board. If I go into one, I go, boop, boop, right? And then, boop, boop. Oh, I got a bunch of them, and then got this one, and then I look around, some coins are falling. Eventually, they're going to fall off, right? Because they're going to hit each other. Watch. Oh, there's one. That's gone, right? No, don't fall, because you hit each other. No, I want to get you. Okay. And then you can see it lands, and then I'm going to get this next one. And then they're both moving because they hit each other, and then that one's going to be gone. And eventually, there's not going to be as many coins left anymore. There's not going to be 10 coins anymore because they're going to fall off like this one does. Right? Until I only got one of those for sure. Until there's no more left, right? So of course, this is the kind of game that I made, right? For the coins, right? Here we go. So you see that this keeps generating the coins forever until they all fall down, right? So, I mean, it didn't take me long to do this, right? It's just that, you know, it's a problem, right? I mean, it's something that I have to solve. So here's a couple things that we have to think about now. I've got my coins rotating. Each one of them is rotating on its own. I've got a coin array that I'm spinning. Do I really need the other constructs? So let's take a look. For example, do I really need the coin itself, the coin mesh itself, the construct? So I can start getting rid of that. I want to optimize, right? So here's my coin PhysiJS mesh. Do I need this? Probably not, right? Because I'm never going to use just a single coin again, right? So I get rid of this, and then I can hunt for problems. I can hunt for errors. Well, here's an error, right? Because if I don't have that, then I don't need this. And if I don't have this, then I don't need my coin material or my geometry, because all this stuff is going to be generated in here, right? So I can get rid of all this stuff. Now, this is not for the meek-hearted what I'm trying to do, because I'm doing it all at once. So it means I might have some errors, right? So I'm changing a bunch of little variables all at once, right? So let's check it out and see that it still works, right? So refresh. That's a good sign. And let's do one of these. Let's inspect the elements and see if I've got any errors. So I want to check my console for errors. So that's one thing. Notice that one thing I get in my console, which is kind of funky, is this error here, this WebGL, Progress, GL, da-da-da-da-da. Well, Mr. Doob, the guy who designed the 3JS library, got rid of this in the latest version, so version 75. Please don't upgrade. That would be very bad. Do not upgrade to version 75. Even if it takes care of this error, it'll introduce new ones, all right? You don't want that problem, all right? So please don't do that. There's some breaking changes it seems to be, or breaking changes or changes every single update, right? Which would be a very bad thing to update. Just leave it as is for now. Don't worry about it. It's just a warning. It doesn't do anything, okay? So this is working great, but I want to create a death plane, all right? I want to create a death plane, and I want it to be fairly large, and I want it to be red, right? Something like so I can see it. How do I do the death plane again? First of all, let's update this on GitHub so we have these changes made. So I'll say, you know, added multiple coins to game, right? At random positions. Basically, that's what it does. I'll push that up to GitHub so that you have that multiple coin thing going on. How I did that with a convex mesh array. That's what it is. Convex mesh array, right? So what I'm doing is I'm using class composition to create an array of objects. Each object is a coin mesh, and all I'm doing is updating that object every time I go through the for loop. I'm creating the object, and I'm adding it into this container that I use here. So I create the container first, and then I add objects to that container every time I leave. Okay, so I have multiple coins. Okay, cool. Well, I need two things before I end for today. I need a hazard, right? And some kind of thing I can bump into, and I definitely need a death plane so I can reset myself, right? So let's quickly create a death plane. So how do I do that? Well, I know that it's going to be of type plane or type, it's a FuzzyJS mesh material, right? Because I want to collide with it, right? To make it easy for myself. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but I find it just easier to follow the physics engine if you're going to use it. So let's make some stuff, some constructs. And it's going to be a type, like a mesh basic material, because I don't need it to be a Fong or anything crazy, right? So I'm going to say var, you know, death plane geometry, right? I mean, what I really want it to be is like my ground geometry, right? So if you notice my ground geometry here, here's is grounded. Here's my sphere, my player, and my ground geometry is just a cube geometry, and that's what I really want to have in there as well. So here's it's a cube geometry, so cube geometry. Also, for my death plane material, here's my material for my death plane. I'm going to make this a mesh basic. So I'm going to take basic, so mesh basic material. That's what I want it to be. So I don't need to be anything fancy, just red, right? And then I want to create the mesh itself. So I'm going to say it's just like I did for coin or whatever. It's going to be a box mesh, right? Just like I did for my ground. Notice if my ground uses a mesh, ground is a FuzzyJS mesh. That's what I want as well. So I'm going to say var death plane is equal to a FuzzyJS.mesh. Okay, so I've got all my requirements for this. Now what I want to do is I want to add my death plane, right? I want it to add it, but it has to be before my event listener, right? For my collision, right? So here's my collision check. It's got to be before this because you know what? If it's after this, it'll mess me up. So I want to kind of make it so that it exists before this thing, right? So I'm going to kind of add a new method called add death plane. I'm adding my death plane. I don't have that yet. Let's go and do that. I'm going to kind of create another mesh in here. Function, add death plane, returns void. And inside there, what do I want to do? It's very simple. I want to make my death plane, right? So how do I do that? So I need a death plane. So death plane geometry is equal to a new box geometry. And the box geometry needs what? Right? It needs width and height and depth. So width is going to be pretty big. I want to make it large, like 32 or larger. Let's make it something like 100, right? And my height is going to be only 1 or even less, right? And my depth, right, is going to be another 100. So it's going to be pretty big. Right, so death plane material, right? We're going to use create FuzzyJS create material, and we're going to pass in there the material type that we want. So a new mesh basic material. There it is, mesh basic material. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in there some options like our color, which is going to be 0x FF0000. That's the material that we're going to pass in. Plus, we're going to pass in a friction and restitution, which we're going to leave the same as 1.4, 0.4, and 0.6. Okay, how come it's giving me an error? Because the death plane material says mesh basic property color is missing in type material, right? Because this is what I'm doing, mesh basic with a color of red, and I'm using a FuzzyJS create material. Well, I gotta be careful. So when I declare my stuff up here, notice how I made my ground material a Fong material, right? And I also made a FuzzyJS material. That's what I really want to make for this one. So my death plane material has got it's got to be a FuzzyJS material. So that's not what I didn't do it right. Material. There we go. That'll take care of that error. All right, let's keep typing. So here's my death plane, and now I want to add in my death plane. So death plane itself is equal to what? It's got to be equal to a FuzzyJS dot box mesh, right? A box mesh material, which I'm going to pass in the death plane geometry, just like we've done before many times, and the death plane material. Plus, it's not going to be affected by gravity, so it's going to be 0, right? And why am I getting this problem? Because I need to make it new, right? New material. Okay, I want to add a couple of other things here. I want to position this thing a little bit lower, right? So I'm going to say something like this: death plane dot set. I want to set my position. So position dot set. So I want to do it after it's been generated or before it's been generated. And because it's physics, I recommend you do all this positioning before. So like right up here. So death plane, but we got to be careful because before it gets added to the scene. Sorry. So here's where it's being set. So set 0. It's going to go down. Let's say, I don't know, 10 meters, right? So minus 10, and then 0. That's the position of my plane, right? So it's going to be positioned down. I also do not want it to cast or receive shadows because it doesn't make sense for me to get that, right? And it has to have a name. So death plane dot name is equal to death plane, right? Then I'll add it to the scene. Scene dot add death plane. Let's check out to see if it works, right? So here's my death plane, and I've added it into my scene. And if everything goes well, then once I've added it into my scene, I can go back to here, and oops, it's already starting, right? I can go back and I should be able to see it now, right? If I go over here to my edge, there's my red plane. This is my death plane, lava, right? So if I jump onto it, I should be able to jump onto it now, no problem. Watch, woo, right? And boom, right? So here's, I'm on my death plane. If I look up, I can see that there's a couple coins here that have fallen off already, and I can maybe collect them, huh? What do you think? But that shouldn't happen. My death plane shouldn't be that way. Come on, that's just not right, right? That's just terrible, right? What I really wanted to do is when I land on my death plane, I wanted to reset my character, respawn my character where he's supposed to be, right? Okay, let's do a couple things with my death plane when I fall off, okay? And then we'll have the full gamut of stuff for the game, right? So the only time he can die is when he falls off the death plane, right? Okay, cool. So, or falls off the plane itself. So notice how my my object, right? Once I've created my my collider, I can now search for my death plane. I can say if the event object, if my event object dot name is equal to exactly equal to death plane. Once I know that that's true, well, this is where I can get all the special effects going on, right? So I don't need. Let me take away some of these console logs because they take up a little bit of space for me. Every time the player hits the ground and so on. There we go. So my death plane, how do I do that? So I want to say something like this. I want to say create.js.sound.play. Let me type this properly. Sound.play. I want to play the hit sound, right? So I hit the plane. As soon as I hit the plane, I get that, boom sound, whatever it's going to be, right? I also want to reduce my life value. So I want to say lives value minus, which takes away 1 life, right? And then I want to do my lives label dot text, right, is equal to lives plus my lives value to update my score. So whenever time I hit the death plane, I lose a life, right? I've lost a life. Now I want to reset myself. So how do I do that? Well, I need to remove my player. So player.remove, and I need to put him back where he's going to be positioned. So now let's take a look at where my player got added in. My player, from a positioning perspective, let's see where he gets added in. So here's my ground, here's my player geometry. Well, here's my player position right here, player position.set. Someone's going to copy this line. I can't do it here because that would be bad, right? What I want to do is before I put my player position in play, I want to do one of these. I want to say scene.remove player. So I want to get rid of my player for a very short time, position him back where he's supposed to be, and then scene.add player. Let's see if that works. So every time I die, I'm going to respawn at the original spot. All right, so let's see if that works the way it should work. If I hit my death plane, so I'll lose a life, and I'll respawn back to where I'm supposed to be. Let's see if that works out. All right, so here's my plane, and let's just check that out. I'm gonna grab a coin, right, and then run off the screen. oh, I'm gonna die, right? And see if it works. See if it works. If I actually fall and spawn, right? So, and then there I am. Right? So that's how same thing happened before, right? So again, let me try this again. So I fall, and then I see myself falling. No, and then where am I? Oh, here I am again. Right? Respawn. And I'll keep doing that over and over again. Notice my lives are 3, my score is 100, and I've got pretty much a full starting level, right? But I need to put some more stuff on. I need some obstacles. I need maybe a bridge to cross from one little platform to another. Something to make it more difficult for me to fall off. Maybe I can change my friction. This is a friction game, right? So it's ice, and basically I can fall off the ice at any time, right? So I got to be careful how I move. I don't know, whatever. Maybe there's a hole in the middle of my field somewhere, and I got to avoid falling in. Whatever. So that's one. The other thing is, what about when I jump? Someone said, I can't get my jumping going. Yeah. Did you see any problem?
Yes, it's working, but
it's so fast, right? So the camera gets removed as well and put back within a second. It's removed and put back, right? So that's what happens. So that's why it doesn't lose anything. Everything is still relative. The camera is going to move to the new position where I position it. Then it's going to be put back into the scene, and then the camera is going to see where the player is based on where the player is. Everything the same relative to the player. I'm not destroying the object. I'm not killing the player object. I'm just removing it from the scene, right? I'm just removing it from the scene and putting it back. That's all I'm doing, right? Yeah. If I reset the position, sometimes what happens is, just FYI, that's why I did this, right? Physics will not allow it to happen because it's a dirty position, right? So physics, once your physics engine takes hold of an object, you can't change the rotation manually or the position if you use a dirty position. But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's why I'm telling you, this is the most reliable method, right? So please don't use dirty position or dirty rotation. You may have mixed results. Okay, one last thing. So I did this piece, but I want to make it so when I jump, I hear the jump sound, all right? All right, so if I make the jump sound, if I want to add the jump sound, and let's take a look at the controller for this thing, right? Now the controller is in a separate spot from my player, right? It's my game loop. I've got this, right? So if player position.y is greater than 4, I'm not grounded anymore, and I'm jumping. So this is the best place to put it, right in here. So I want to make that sound happen. So create.sound.play, jump, right? If this is correct, if I've done everything correct, and if I jump is the right sound, I don't know if I called it jump, I probably did. Did I even add it in? That'll be a problem, right? So let's go, that's not going to play. So let's go back up to the top and make sure I've got the jump sound in play because I need to add it into my manifest. No, if it's not in my manifest, so it's not here, it won't play. So let's just add it in. I'm going to grab this whole thing here. And then we're done for the day. I think I've accomplished everything I want to do with you guys for this game. So jump, and then we're going to call this the jump wave. So jump, got to be spelled properly, .wave, save. And now I have a jump sound. So I can generate that jump sound when I need to. There we go. So now I'm here, and I press play, and if I press space, right? Oh man, where's my jump sound? How come? Oh, there it is. How come it didn't go off right away? Right? You hear it? If I go like that, look, I'm jumping, but I'm not really jumping, right? But if I go like this, then I hear it. Watch. How come? Because it's a stupid way I've made my jump. Let's take a look at my jump, right? My jump, the way it works is this. I detect that I'm leaving the ground, right? In a very simple, stupid way, right? Right now. I'm going to fix this with raycasting in a bit when we get back next week, right? But for now, if you notice, my jump works like this. If my player position.y is greater than 4, then I'm jumping. But you know what? I don't have to put it here. If I put this here, that's 1. The reason why I want to put it in here or limit it somehow, so is, as an example, that if I put it out here, what will happen if I put it out here? If I take this create sound and put it out here. So if my controls jump works, anytime I press my space bar, it's going to make the sound, right? Let's see the difference if I do this now. Be careful when you do this, what happens, right? I'm just saying, we're thinking about this out loud, right? So what happens when I do this, right? Okay, well, let's check this out and see if it happens, right? So if I go back to the thing here and I press thing and I press space, right? Sounds like more like a fart than anything else, right? Right? It's not a jump anymore. It's like something else, right? Sounds weird. And the reason why it's happening is because as long as I press my space bar, right? As long as I press my space bar, it's going to make that sound over and over again. I don't want that. So how do I fix that in a really easy way? Well, here I'm checking for if y is greater than 4, that I'm not grounded, right? Why? Because I want to leave the ground a little bit in order for me to do that. Now I can reduce this. Be careful, right? So let's try this again. If I put, what happens if I put it as y is greater than 1? So when my y is greater than 1, my middle position, is my middle position 1? Let's take a look and see what happens when I say my y is greater than 1. That's why I'm going to put, I put it at 4 for a reason, right? Let's go back and see what happens, right? Here it is, I'm back, and then I jump. Oh, what happens? Well, my y is greater than 1 and stays greater than 1 all the time, so I never actually get a jump. That's why I need to get a little bit of height before it happens. This is why it's this. But I want to generate this sound if my player position is greater than 1, right? So if it's player's position is greater than 1 and I press the keyboard, that's what's happening, right? So let's make another little if statement. Let's try this out. So if my player.position .y is greater than 1, and that might not be the right value, we'll see, then make the sound, right? So if I've left the ground, basically, you know, that's one way to do it. The other way is if it's grounded as false, but that means it's still greater than 4, right? So that's the same thing. So let's try this out one more time. And we can solve this issue pretty clearly. Still the same problem, right? Because even though my y is greater than 1, it's every single time my y is greater than 1, you know, is what it is. So we got to find a happy medium. But that's how you do it. You try and find a happy medium between this and this, right? Sometimes it's y is greater than 2, you know, whatever, to figure it out, between 2 and 4. See, I'm going right through, right? Something's not right because as I'm going, watch, still get that sound, right? The reason why I don't get it here, when I put it in here, is because is grounded is false. So it's not going to generate that sound more than one time, right? It's almost like it's if I'm jumping, I got to have another variable that says I'm jumping. If I'm jumping, then I can't make the sound. I'll make the sound only one time, right? I'm not going to do that now, but that's what the solution is. I have to make another variable that's running out of time up in the top here that says is jumping, right? Is jumping. I got is grounded. I need another one. People are waiting outside. Is jumping, and if is jumping is true, right? As soon as I press that button, is jumping. And when I land again, I'm not jumping anymore. And then between that 2 times, I can only have one sound. Okay, that's it, guys. For me next week, please. Friday, you got your assignment number 3, part 3 due on Friday at midnight, right? And please pick your partners for your final project. I want to check with you guys next week on Monday. We get together. Thank you.